Welcome to my Channel Deep Sleep Mission-DSM. As we begin, I would be delighted if you could share your location in the comments below. It's truly inspiring to witness how far this content travels and to connect with viewers from across the world. 43 people don't just disappear. Not in a town like Millbrook, Ohio. Not from a factory with security cameras on every corner. Not when their cars are still in the parking lot. Engines cold, coffee still warm in the break room. But that's exactly what happened last Tuesday night at Brennan Manufacturing. And I was supposed to be number 44. My name is Jake Morrison. I worked the night shift at Brennan's. We made industrial cooling units. Nothing glamorous. Just honest work for honest pay. The kind of job that keeps the lights on and puts food on the table. The kind of job where you clock in at 11 p.m. and clock out at 7 a.m. 5 nights a week. The kind of job where everyone knows everyone and nothing interesting ever happens. Until it did. If you're listening to this right now, lying in bed, maybe with the lights off, maybe you should turn them on. Because what I'm about to tell you is true. Every word. And by the end of this story, you'll understand why I can't sleep anymore. Why I jump at every shadow. Why I'll never work another night shift as long as I live. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me tell you what really happened that night. The night when 43 people vanished into thin air and left me behind to tell the tale. The story begins now. I should have been there. God help me, I should have been there with them. Tuesday started like any other day. I woke up around 9 p.m., had my breakfast for dinner, scrambled eggs and toast, same as always. Kissed my wife Sarah goodbye. She was already half asleep, mumbling something about remembering to pick up milk on the way home. Normal. Everything was so damn normal. The drive to Brennan Manufacturing took 20 minutes. Same route I'd taken for the past 3 years. Down Highway 42, past the old Garrison farm, through the sleeping suburbs of Millbrook. I had my radio tuned to that classic rock station out of Columbus. They were playing Don't Fear the Reaper when my car decided to die. Just died. Right there on the side of the road, maybe 5 miles from the factory. No warning. No strange noises. 1 second I'm cruising along at 55, the next I'm coasting to a stop on the shoulder. The engine wouldn't turn over. Nothing. Not even a click. I checked my phone. 10:47 p.m. I was going to be late. Tom, my supervisor, was going to give me hell. I called the factory's main line. No answer. Strange, but not unheard of. Sometimes Denise, the night receptionist, stepped away from her desk. I tried Tom's cell, straight to voicemail. I left a message explaining about the car, promising I'd be there as soon as I could. That message is probably still on his phone, wherever his phone is now, wherever he is. A passing trucker gave me a jump start around 11:20. Nice guy. Said he was heading to Cincinnati with a load of furniture. He waited until my engine caught, made sure I was good to go. I thanked him, maybe saved his life by making him late for whatever was waiting down the road. By the time I pulled into Brennan's parking lot, it was 11:38 p.m. The parking lot was full. That was normal. What wasn't normal was the silence. Brennan Manufacturing never sleeps. That's what we used to joke. The place ran 24 hours a day, 6 days a week. The night shift was smaller than the day crew, but we kept those machines humming. You could always hear them from the parking lot. The rhythmic thrum of the assembly line, the hiss of pneumatic tools, the distant clatter of forklifts in the warehouse. But that night, nothing. Just the wind rustling through the trees at the edge of the lot. I grabbed my lunch bag and headed for the employee entrance. My keycard beeped green, and I pushed through the door into the locker room. The lights were on. Everything looked normal. A few lockers stood open. Mike's jacket hung on its usual hook. Someone had left a half-eaten sandwich on the bench. Hello? My voice echoed off the concrete walls. Anybody here? No answer. I checked my phone again. 11:41 p.m. Maybe they were having an all-hands meeting in the break room. Tom sometimes did that when corporate sent down new safety protocols, but he always waited for everyone to clock in first. Company policy. The time clock showed something strange. Everyone had clocked in between 10:55 and 11 o'clock, just like always. But there were no clockouts, not even for breaks. In 3 years, I'd never seen that happen. The hallway to the main floor stretched ahead of me, lit by those harsh fluorescent lights that made everything look slightly green. My footsteps echoed. Click, click, click on the polished concrete. Somewhere in the distance I could hear a faint humming. Not the machines. Something else. Something almost musical. I pushed through the double doors to the main floor and stopped dead. The assembly line was running. All the machines were on, operating at full capacity. Robotic arms swung through their programmed movements. Conveyor belts carried half-assembled cooling units from station to station. The quality control lights blinked green, green, green. Everything working perfectly. But there was nobody there. Not a soul. "Tom," I called out, my voice swallowed by the mechanical symphony. "Mike, anybody?" I walked along the assembly line, checking each station. At Station 3, where Rosa always worked, her safety glasses sat neatly on the work surface. A cup of coffee steamed gently beside them. Still hot. I touched the cup. It was like she'd just set it down. At Station 7, I found Marcus's phone. The screen was cracked. He'd dropped it last week and kept saying he'd get it fixed. It was playing a video. Some comedy sketch from YouTube. The phone was warm, like it had just fallen from his hand. The humming sound grew louder as I moved deeper into the facility. Not mechanical. Almost like singing, but not quite. It seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. The warehouse section was the same story. Forklifts sat abandoned in the aisles, some still running. One was stopped mid-turn, a pallet of components balanced perfectly on its forks. Gary's clipboard lay on the seat, his pen rolled onto the floor. The inventory sheet showed he'd been halfway through his 11 p.m. count. I found myself running then, through the shipping area, past the loading docks, into the quality control lab. Empty, all empty. But everywhere I looked, there were signs of sudden abandonment. Half-finished paperwork. Tools set down mid-task. A security monitor showing me running through the halls, and nothing else. No other movement anywhere in the building. The break room was the worst. 20 or so lunch bags sat on tables, meals half-eaten. CNN played silently on the wall-mounted TV. Someone's soup still swirled in the microwave. 23 seconds left on the timer. In the corner, the coffee pot was full, fresh brewed. The schedule on the wall showed all 43 names for tonight's shift. Every name but mine. That humming sound. It was definitely louder here, coming from above, below, I couldn't tell. It made my teeth ache. I pulled out my phone, hands shaking, and called 911. 911, what's your emergency? I'm at Brennan Manufacturing on Industrial Drive. Something's happened. Everyone's gone. The entire night shift just... They're not here. Sir, are you saying there's been an accident? No, I don't know. They're just gone. All of them. But their stuff is here, the machines are running. Everything's normal except the people are missing. How many people are we talking about, sir? 43 people. There was a pause. We're dispatching units now. Are you safe? Do you see any signs of violence? Violence? I hadn't even thought. I looked around. No blood, no signs of struggle, nothing disturbed except by my own frantic searching. No, nothing like that. It's like they all just vanished. Stay where you are, sir. Don't touch anything. Officers are on the way. I hung up and stood there in the break room, surrounded by abandoned meals and that strange, persistent humming. That's when I noticed the smell. Not bad, exactly, just wrong. Like ozone and copper and something else. Something organic. The lights flickered. Just once. but in that split second of darkness I could have sworn I saw something. Shapes. Moving. But when the light steadied, I was alone. The humming grew louder. The police arrived in 12 minutes. 2 cruisers at first, then more. Then the state police. Then people in suits who didn't identify themselves but spoke with the kind of authority that made everyone else step aside. They questioned me for hours. The same questions over and over. What time did I arrive? Did I see anyone leave? Did I touch anything? Was there anyone who might want to harm the workers? Did Brennans have any enemies? Government contracts? Trade secrets? I told them about my car breaking down. They sent an officer to verify my story, found the trucker at a rest stop 50 miles south. He confirmed he'd helped me. That seemed to satisfy them that I wasn't involved. Just the lucky one who'd been late. Lucky. Right. They sealed off the building. Brought in dogs, forensic teams, the works. By dawn, there were news vans in the parking lot. By noon, it was national news. 43 workers vanished from Ohio factory. Mass disappearance baffles authorities. Where did the night shift go? They let me go home around 9 a.m. with instructions not to leave town, not to talk to the media. Sarah was waiting for me, eyes red from crying. She'd seen the news. Thought I was gone too until I'd called. I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard that humming. Saw the empty stations, the steam rising from Rosa's coffee. The official investigation turned up nothing. No signs of forced exit. No evidence of violence. The security footage showed everyone arriving for their shift, clocking in, going to their stations. Then, at 11:22 p.m., all the cameras went dark for exactly 3 minutes. When they came back online, the factory was empty. Just the machines, running their endless cycle. They checked everything. The ventilation system for gas leaks, the chemical storage for contamination, the electrical systems for some kind of massive shock, nothing. 43 people had simply ceased to exist at 11:22 p.m. on a Tuesday night in Millbrook, Ohio. But I knew something they didn't, because I'd gone back, not inside. They had it sealed off, but I'd driven there 3 nights later, parked across the street. Needed to see it again. Needed to make sense of it. And that's when I saw them. The lights, they started appearing around 11:20 p.m. Soft blue-white lights moving inside the factory. Through the windows, I could see them drifting between the machines. Dancing, almost. And the humming. Even from across the street, I could hear it. Feel it in my bones. I wasn't the only one watching. Mrs. Chen from the day shift was there, parked 2 cars down. She'd worked with her daughter, Lisa. Lisa was gone now. We didn't speak, just sat in our cars, watching those impossible lights move through the empty factory. At 11:25, the lights grew brighter. The humming became almost unbearable. And then shadows. Human shadows, moving behind the windows, working the machines, going through the motions. But wrong, all wrong. They moved too smoothly, too perfectly, like a recording, like an echo. Mrs. Chen started her car and drove away. I should have followed, but I stayed, watched. And at exactly 11:38, the time I'd arrived that night, the shadows stopped, turned, all of them. Turned toward the parking lot, toward me. I saw faces in the windows, familiar faces. Tom, Mike, Rosa, Marcus, all of them. Staring out at me with eyes that glowed with that same blue-white light. They didn't move, didn't blink, just stared and smiled. I drove home so fast I'm surprised I didn't crash. Didn't stop shaking until dawn. Called in sick to my new job at the distribution center. Couldn't tell Sarah what I'd seen, couldn't tell anyone. But that wasn't the end. The investigation went cold after 2 weeks. The FBI packed up their mobile lab. The news vans found other stories to chase. Brennan Manufacturing stayed closed, its parking lot empty except for the security guard who checked the perimeter every hour. The official report labeled it an unexplained mass disappearance. Case open but inactive. 43 families left without answers. I tried to move on. Got a job at a warehouse on the day shift. Stopped driving past Brennan's. Stopped thinking about it. Almost convinced myself it had been a hallucination. Those lights and shadows and faces. Trauma, the therapist said. My mind trying to process an impossible event. Then Dennis Kramer disappeared. Dennis had worked the day shift at Brennan's for 15 years. Good guy, quiet. Always brought homemade beef jerky to share in the break room. 2 weeks after the night shift vanished, Dennis didn't come home from his new job at the tire plant. They found his car in the parking lot. Engine running, door open, radio playing. But Dennis was gone. The police didn't connect it. Different location, different circumstances. But I knew. Dennis had been working the late shift, 3 p.m. to 11 p.m. He'd vanished at 11:22. I started researching. Spent hours at the library, combing through old newspapers, looking for patterns, and I found them. 1987. 28 workers disappeared from a textiles factory in North Carolina. Night shift, all at once. No explanation. 1994. 35 people vanished from a processing plant in Michigan. Graveyard crew. Authorities blamed a gas leak, but no bodies were ever found. 2001. 41 employees of a distribution center in Nevada. Gone between one security round and the next. Case never solved. 2009. 39 night workers at a fulfillment center in Texas. Cameras showed nothing. Families devastated. Investigations stalled. Always night shifts. Always industrial facilities. Always between 30 and 50 people. And always, if you dug deep enough, reports of strange lights in the buildings afterward. Humming sounds. Shadows moving where no one should be. I mapped them out. The incidents formed a rough line across the country, moving east to west, then starting over. Like something was feeding, moving from place to place, taking what it needed and moving on. But there was more. In each case, in the weeks that followed, former employees would disappear. People who'd worked at those facilities but weren't there that night. Day shift workers. Managers who'd been home. Security guards who'd called in sick. One by one, they'd vanish too. Always at 11:22 p.m. Always without a trace. The pattern was clear. Whatever took the night shift at Brennan's wasn't finished. It was coming back for the rest of us. I tried to warn people, called everyone I could think of who'd worked at Brennan's. Most thought I was crazy. Some listened. Margie from accounting started staying with her sister in Kentucky. Bob from maintenance moved his whole family to Florida. Maybe they're safe. Maybe distance matters. Maybe it doesn't. Mrs. Chen disappeared last Tuesday. Her neighbor said she'd been working late, trying to distract herself. Cleaning offices at night to pay for her daughter's memorial. They found her car at the office building, doors locked, keys in the ignition, gone at 11:22 p.m. There are 12 of us left. 12 people who worked at Brennan Manufacturing and survived that night. We stay in touch now, check in every morning, compare notes on the strange dreams we've all been having. Dreams of blue-white lights and perfect mechanical movements. Dreams of working shifts that never end in factories that exist outside of time. 3 more have reported hearing the humming. Say it follows them. Gets louder at night. Paula swears she saw Lisa Chen in her bedroom mirror last week, standing behind her smiling with those glowing eyes. Just for a second. But long enough, I know my time is coming. Can feel it getting closer. The humming is with me constantly now. Sometimes, out of the corner of my eye, I see them. My old co-workers. Standing in impossible places. On rooftops, in reflections, in the static between channels, waiting, smiling, patient. Last night, I woke up at 11:20, don't know why, just suddenly wide awake, heart pounding. Sarah was still asleep beside me. The room was dark except for the alarm clock's red glow. 11:21. I heard it then. Not humming. Footsteps. In the hallway outside our bedroom. Slow. Measured. Familiar. They stopped right outside the door. 11:22. The doorknob turned. Slowly. So slowly. I wanted to scream, to grab Sarah and run, but I couldn't move. Could only watch as the door opened and Tom walked in. My old supervisor. Still wearing his Brennan manufacturing polo. Still carrying his clipboard. His eyes glowed with that terrible blue-white light. "You're late, Jake," he said, and his voice was the humming sound. "The shift is starting. Time to clock in." I blinked, and he was gone. The door was closed. Sarah was still sleeping. The clock read 11:23, but I know what I saw. Know what it means. They're coming for me. For all of us who got away. The night shift at Brennan Manufacturing isn't over. It never ended. It just moved somewhere else. And now it wants its missing workers back. I'm uploading this story because people need to know. If you work a night shift, any night shift, pay attention. Watch for the signs. The humming. The lights. Coworkers acting strange. And if everyone starts disappearing at 11:22 p.m., run. Don't be a hero. Don't investigate. Just run. And if you're lying in bed right now, listening to this in the dark, and you hear humming that wasn't there before, check your clock, because somewhere out there, in a factory that exists between seconds, between reality and nightmare, the machines are still running. The night shift is still working, and they're always hiring, always. Sweet dreams. If you made it this far, you're braver than most. Tell me in the comments, have you ever worked a night shift, ever experienced something you couldn't explain? And that humming sound I mentioned, you don't hear it right now, do you? Of course not. That would be impossible. Unless, subscribe if you want more true stories from the dark corners of America. But fair warning, some doors, once opened, can never be closed. And some shifts never really end. They're still out there, still working, still waiting. Clock in at your own risk. Story number 2. The smell hit me first. Not mold or decay like you'd expect from an abandoned house, but cinnamon. Fresh baked cinnamon rolls, warm and inviting, wafting through the dusty air of a home that hadn't seen an oven turned on in 3 years. It should have been my first warning. But after 6 months of apartment hunting in Denver's impossible market, finding a Victorian fixer-upper for half the asking price, well, you learn to ignore the red flags when desperation sets in. If you're listening to this right now, probably tucked under your covers thinking this is just another spooky story, I need you to understand something. Some homes come with more than creaky floorboards and old pipes. Some come with tenants that no eviction notice can remove. And sometimes they've been waiting for you. The story begins now. I remember the exact moment I saw the listing. February 14th, Valentine's Day. Sitting alone in my studio apartment, scrolling through Zillow, while my neighbors argued through paper-thin walls. The Victorian house on Maple Street had been posted for exactly 17 minutes. 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, original hardwood floors, and a price that made me check my screen for glitches. There's gotta be a catch, I muttered, already dialing the realtor's number. Sarah Chen answered on the first ring. "You're calling about the Maple Street property." Not a question, a statement. Like she'd been waiting. "Yeah, is the price correct? 180,000? A pause. Just long enough to make me wonder if the call had dropped. "The sellers are motivated. Can you view it today?" Today, not tomorrow, not this weekend. Today. I should have asked why the urgency. Should have wondered why a house priced to move hadn't already been snatched up in this market. But all I could think about was finally having my own space. No more shared walls. No more asking permission to hang pictures. No more landlords. The drive from downtown Denver to the old suburb took 40 minutes. Long enough for doubt to creep in. Long enough to notice how Sarah's texts came through in rapid bursts, each one slightly more urgent than the last. Almost here? The sellers really want this done quickly. Just pull into the driveway when you arrive. I'll meet you inside. Not outside like normal viewings. Another red flag I sailed right past. Maple Street was one of those forgotten corners of suburbia where the trees grew too tall and the houses sat too far apart. Number 47 squatted at the end of a cul-de-sac, its Victorian bones still elegant despite the peeling paint and overgrown garden. A swing hung from the ancient oak out front, swaying slightly despite the absence of wind. Sarah's silver Toyota was already in the driveway. The front door stood ajar. "Hello," I called out, stepping onto the wraparound porch. The boards groaned under my weight but held firm. Through the doorway I could see hardwood floors that gleamed despite the dust motes dancing in the afternoon light. "In here," Sarah's voice echoed from somewhere deep in the house. That's when I smelled it. Cinnamon rolls, fresh from the oven, the scent so vivid I could almost taste the cream cheese frosting. My stomach growled, reminding me I'd skipped lunch in my rush to get here. The entryway opened into a living room that belonged in a magazine. Crown molding, built-in bookshelves, a fireplace with original tile work. Everything covered in a fine layer of dust except for a clear path worn through the center of the room, as if someone had been walking this exact route. Recently. Frequently. "Sarah?" I called again, following the path toward what I assumed was the kitchen. "Just looking at the pantry, you have to see this kitchen." The kitchen was a dream. Original cabinets painted soft white, a farmhouse sink, windows that looked out onto what must have once been a beautiful garden. And on the counter, nothing. No cooling rack of cinnamon rolls, no mixing bowls, nothing to explain the smell that grew stronger with each breath. Sarah emerged from a door I'd assumed was a pantry, her usually perfect hair slightly mussed, her smile a touch too bright. Isn't it perfect? The sellers inherited it from an aunt. Haven't lived here in years, but kept up with basic maintenance. "It smells like someone's been baking," I said. Her smile flickered, just for a second. Old houses hold scents. The aunt loved to bake, apparently. "Shall we see the upstairs?" We climbed stairs that didn't creak. Unusual for a house this old. 3 bedrooms, each more charming than the last. The master had a reading nook built into a turret, windows on 3 sides. I was already imagining my mornings there, coffee in hand, watching the neighborhood wake up. "The sellers are asking for a quick close," Sarah said as we descended back to the living room. "Cash offer would be ideal, but they're flexible on financing. Very flexible." "Why?" The question slipped out before I could stop it. "I mean, this place is worth at least double what they're asking." Sarah's fingers drummed against her clipboard, a nervous rhythm. Family situations can be complicated. The aunt who lived here, well, she was beloved in the neighborhood, fed everyone, always baking for the kids. When she passed, none of the relatives wanted. She paused, choosing her words carefully. They just wanted handled, quickly. When did she pass? 3 years ago. 3 years, the dust made sense. The overgrown garden, but not the worn path through the living room, not the fresh cinnamon smell. "I'll take it," I heard myself say. Sarah's relief was palpable. "Wonderful. I have the paperwork in my car. We can make an offer today." "No offer. Asking price, cash." I had enough in savings from my grandmother's estate. Money I'd been hoarding for exactly this moment. Sarah's hand trembled slightly as she wrote up the contract. We did it all right there in the dusty living room, using a TV tray she found in a closet as a desk. When we finished, she handed me a business card along with my copies. "The inspector I usually recommend," she said. "Just a formality. The house is solid." I glanced at the card. Tom Morrison, Morrison Inspections. But underneath his regular contact info, someone had written in pen, "Call me before you move in." Important. "Is this your writing?" I asked. Sarah was already at the door. "The sellers will be thrilled. We'll close by the end of the month." She paused on the threshold, silhouetted against the late afternoon sun. "Ellie?" The aunt's name was Margaret Harper, in case you hear anyone in the neighborhood mention her. Then she was gone, her Toyota reversing out of the driveway with more speed than seemed necessary. I stood alone in my new home. And that's when I noticed the cold spot, right where I was standing. The kind of cold that seeps through your shoes, crawls up your legs. I stepped to the left, warm, back to the right. Freezing. A circle of cold. Perfect, precise, about the size of a person. The inspection turned up nothing. Tom Morrison spent 4 hours going through every inch of the house, and his report was glowing. "Solid bones," he'd said over and over. "They don't make them like this anymore." But when I walked him to his truck, he lingered, kept glancing back at the house. "You get my note?" he asked. "On the back of my card?" "Yeah, but Sarah already left when I noticed it. What's important?" Tom opened his truck door, then closed it again. A man wrestling with his conscience. Margaret Harper, the aunt. She didn't exactly pass away 3 years ago. My stomach dropped. "What do you mean?" "I mean she passed away. Just not away, you understand?" I didn't, not then. Tom must have seen my confusion because he sighed, running a hand through his graying hair. "Look, I inspect a lot of old houses, see a lot of things. Most of it's nothing. Settling foundations, weird noises from old pipes. But this house..." He glanced at the windows. "Margaret never left, and she's got routines, habits. You respect those, you'll be fine." "You're telling me my house is haunted?" I tried to laugh. It came out strained. "I'm telling you, Margaret Harper baked cinnamon rolls every Tuesday and Friday. She read in that turret room from 2 to 4 every afternoon. She walked the same path through her house every evening at sunset. Living room to kitchen to stairs, checking locks, turning off lights. 3 years after her death, she still does. Tom. The last family lasted 6 weeks. The ones before that, 3 days. But Margaret's not mean. She's just particular. You respect her routines, don't change too much too fast, and you'll have the best roommate you never asked for." He climbed into his truck. "The cinnamon rolls are actually pretty good. She leaves them on the counter Fridays." He drove away before I could process what he'd said. Ghosts don't bake. They don't leave real food on real counters. But as I stood in my driveway, I could smell it again. Cinnamon. Sugar. Warmth. Moving day came faster than expected. March 1st, a Saturday. The kind of bright Colorado morning that makes you forget winter ever happened. My friends Jake and Mia had volunteered to help, lured by promises of pizza and beer. "This place is incredible," Mia breathed, setting a box in the entryway. "How the hell did you afford it?" "Motivated sellers," I repeated. Sarah's line. Jake emerged from the kitchen, face pale. Ellie? There's fresh coffee in the pot, like brewing, right now fresh." We found the coffee maker plugged in, half a pot of dark roast steaming gently. 3 mugs set out on the counter. Not dusty, clean. Waiting. Maybe the realtor, Mia suggested weakly. But we all knew Sarah hadn't been back. I'd changed the locks myself the day after closing. "Must be on a timer," I said, pouring coffee into the 3 mugs. It was perfect, exactly how I liked it. Previous owners probably forgot to turn it off. Jake and Mia exchanged glances but said nothing. We drank the coffee, because what else do you do? and got back to unloading. By noon, we'd emptied the truck. Boxes stacked in appropriate rooms, furniture roughly in place. I was arranging books on the built-in shelves when Mia screamed from upstairs. We thundered up the steps to find her standing in the hallway, pointing at the turret room. There was someone, a woman, sitting in the window seat reading. The room was empty, dust motes dancing. No sign of anyone. Maybe a reflection, Jake suggested. The windows up here are old. Wavy glass can't... She looked at me, Mia interrupted. Looked right at me over her book and smiled. Then I blinked and... nothing. They left soon after. Pizza forgotten. Jake muttered something about a forgotten appointment. Mia hugged me extra tight at the door, whispered, "You sure about this place?" I was, even with the coffee, even with Mia's sighting. Because standing in my living room, surrounded by boxes and possibility, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years. Home. That first night, I barely slept. Every sound was new, needed cataloging. The house settling. Pipes ticking. The oak tree brushing against the roof, but also footsteps. Soft. Measured. Walking the path Tom had warned me about. Living room to kitchen to stairs. I lay frozen, listening to my invisible roommate make her rounds. The footsteps paused at my bedroom door. A long moment of silence. Then they continued to the next room. The next. Checking. Making sure everything was as it should be. When sunrise finally came, I found a note on my kitchen counter. Elegant cursive on yellowed paper that hadn't been there the night before. "Welcome home, dear. The coffee is set for 6 a.m. I hope you don't mind." M, living with Margaret, took adjustment. That first week I mapped her routines like a naturalist studying wildlife. Coffee at 6 a.m. sharp. The smell of baking Tuesdays and Fridays. Reading time from 2 to 4. And God help you if you made noise during those hours. Evening rounds at sunset. I learned to work around her. Scheduled my remote work meetings for mornings. Took calls outside during her reading time. Started buying extra flour and eggs because somehow mine kept disappearing, only to reappear as baked goods I hadn't made. The notes continued, always on that same yellowed paper. The roses need pruning before they bloom. That young man who delivers packages is too thin. I left cookies. Your mother called while you were out. I didn't answer, of course. That last one made me check my phone. 3 missed calls from Mom. No way to explain how I knew. By the 3rd week, I'd started talking to her. Felt foolish at first, chatting to empty rooms. But the house felt less empty when I did. "Morning, Margaret. Coffee smells great. I'm heading out for groceries. Need anything?" Pause. Laugh at myself. Right. Ghost. Never mind. But the next day, my shopping list had additions in that familiar cursive. Vanilla extract. Good cinnamon. Not that store brand nonsense. Heavy cream. Jake visited exactly once. Brought beer and an apology for bailing on moving day. We were in the living room, 2nd beer in, when the temperature plummeted. "Jesus," he muttered, breath visible. "Your heating broken?" Before I could answer, his beer bottle exploded. Not dramatically, just crack. Beer everywhere, glass scattered. "She doesn't like drinking in the living room," I said quietly. "My fault, should have warned you." Jake stared at me. At the broken bottle, at the door. "I'm gonna go." He didn't come back. Mia lasted longer. She'd visit during Margaret's reading hours when the presence felt softer. We'd sit in the garden, planning what to plant come spring. But even Mia had limits. "She watches me," Mia said one afternoon, "when you're not looking from the windows. Like she's evaluating." "She's protective," I admitted. Tom Morrison said the last families didn't respect her routines, tried to change too much. What happened to them? I shrugged. They left. But I'd started wondering. Late at night, when footsteps walked past that didn't match Margaret's routine. when shadows moved in corners where shadows shouldn't be, when I'd wake to find my furniture rearranged, not drastically, just wrong, chair angled differently, books reshelved by some system I couldn't decode. Margaret was protective, yes, but of what? Me? The house? Or protecting me from something? The answer came on a Tuesday, baking day. I'd grown comfortable enough to work in the kitchen while she did her thing. Ingredients appearing, mixing bowls clattering, the oven turning on by itself. Almost cozy in a supernatural way. I was on a video call when it happened. Laptop propped on the counter, discussing project timelines with my team. Normal day. Until Ben, my project manager, went pale. "Ellie, there's someone behind you." I turned. Nothing, just the kitchen. No, seriously, old woman, gray hair in a bun. She's shaking her head at me. The call dropped. My laptop shut down. When I got it restarted, Ben had messaged, "Taking you off the Morrison project, conflict of interest, Morrison." Like Tom Morrison? I searched my company directory. Ben's latest project, developing the old Harper property on Maple Street into condos. This house. They wanted to develop this house. Had been planning it even as Sarah sold it to me. A quick flip to a naive buyer, then reclaim it through some loophole. That night, Margaret's note was longer than usual. They tried before, 6 families in 3 years. Each one approached by developers, each one who considered selling, encouraged to leave quickly. This house stands as it was built, as it will remain. You understand now? I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the note. "You're not protecting the house. You're protecting something in the house." The temperature dropped. Not angry cold like with Jake, sad cold, desperate cold. Another note appeared. 2 words. Not something, someone. I found the first one by accident. Dropped an earring behind the built-in bookshelf. Had to pull it out to retrieve it. The wall behind was different. Newer plaster, painted to match but not quite succeeding. Margaret's evening footsteps stopped that night. Waited. Watching as I ran my hands over the patch. "What's behind here, Margaret?" The house creaked, settled. Then, impossibly, the plaster began to crack. Fine lines spreading like frost on a window. I should have been terrified. Instead, I reached for a hammer. The plaster came away in chunks, revealing a small alcove. Inside, a wooden box. Cedar, hand-carved. Inside that, a photograph. Sepia-toned. A young woman in 1920s dress, laughing at something beyond the camera's view. On the back, in faded ink, Eleanor Harper. My darling Ellie. My name, my grandmother's name, my great-grandmother's name. "Margaret," I whispered. "How?" More plaster cracked. This time near the fireplace. Another alcove, another box. Letters this time. Love letters between Margaret Harper and Eleanor Harper. Dated 1925 through 1928. Words of Devotion Society wouldn't let them speak aloud. "My dearest M, the hours until Tuesday stretch eternal. Beloved E, your laugh lives in these walls. When this cruel world softens, we will walk freely. Until then, I keep you here, safe in our secret home." I spent the night reading, learning. Margaret and Eleanor hiding their love in a time that would have destroyed them for it. Meeting in secret. Building a life in shadows and stolen moments. Until Eleanor married my great-grandfather. Not for love, but for survival. For the camouflage of convention. But she'd given her first daughter a name to remember. Eleanor. Ellie. Passed down like a promise. The final letter broke me. She's gone, my walls. Took our secret to her grave as promised. But I remain. Someone must remember. Someone must know we were real. That our love was real. I'll wait, however long it takes. Blood calls to blood, heart calls to heart. Someday, and Eleanor will come home. I was sobbing when the sun rose. Margaret's presence wrapped around me like a blanket, warm, safe. The cinnamon smell stronger than ever. "I'm here," I told the empty room that wasn't empty at all. I came home, just like you knew I would. The developers came the next week, slick suits and smarmy smiles, offering 3 times what I'd paid, then 5 times, then veiled threats about zoning laws and eminent domain. I stood on my porch, Margaret a cold fury at my back, and smiled. This house has been in my family for generations. It will remain so. Your family? The lead developer consulted his tablet. Our records show the Harpers have no living descendants. Your records are incomplete. I held up the letters, the photographs, the deed I'd found hidden in the turret room, transferring the house to any descendant of Eleanor Harper who comes seeking home. They left, but I knew they'd be back. Men like that always come back. That night, Margaret's note was different. Newer paper, stronger ink. They will not stop. But neither will we. This house has secrets yet. Protections built into the very foundations. You are not just my tenant, dear one. You are my heir, my blood returned, my love reborn. Together, we are more than they can move. Over the following days, Margaret showed me hidden passages I'd never have found alone. A basement room where she'd kept journals. 70 years of watching, waiting, protecting. Names of every family who'd tried to live here. Why they'd left, or been encouraged to leave. The Johnsons, who'd planned to gut the kitchen. They'd lasted 3 days before every appliance in their temporary apartment failed simultaneously. The Westbrooks, who'd already contacted demolition crews. 1 week before mysterious leaks flooded their moving truck. 6 families. 6 attempts to destroy Margaret's vigil. 6 failures. But I'm different, I said, reading the last entry. I'm Eleanor's blood. You're more than that, appeared on the page as I watched. You're someone who listened, who learned, who didn't try to change me or chase me out. You made this your home while letting it remain mine. The doorbell rang. Tom Morrison stood on my porch looking tired. They got to the city council, he said without preamble. Emergency meeting tomorrow. They're going to try to declare the house a historical hazard. Force a sale. How do you know? He smiled sadly. Because my grandmother was Margaret's best friend. I've been watching out for this place since I was a kid. Waiting for you, I guess. The Eleanor who had finally come home to stay. Inside, I felt Margaret's attention sharpen. Tom had known, all along he'd known. What do I do? I asked. You fight, and Margaret? He raised his voice, addressing the house itself. Margaret, it's time to stop hiding. Time to let the world know why this house matters. Why it can't be destroyed. The lights flickered. Once. Twice. Agreement. That night, I couldn't sleep. Tomorrow, I'd face the city council. Fight for a house I'd lived in for less than 2 months. Fight for a ghost who'd waited almost a century for me to find my way home. At exactly 2 a.m., footsteps that weren't Margaret's usual path. These led to the attic. A door I'd never noticed before stood open. Inside, a trunk, legal documents, photographs, and a letter addressed to me. Not my grandmother, not my great-grandmother. Me. Dearest Ellie, who will someday come, if you read this, then blood has called to blood as I always knew it would. The trunk holds proof. This house is more than wood and stone. It's a monument to love that dared not speak its name. A shrine to all the Margarets and Eleanors who had to hide, who have to hide still. They will come for it. They always do, those who would erase us from history. But you have what I didn't. You can stand in the light. You can speak our truth aloud. The house is yours. But more than that, our story is yours. Tell it, protect it. Let it protect others as it protected us. All my love, Margaret P.S. The cinnamon rolls really are good. Recipes in the kitchen drawer. I laughed, cried, made plans. Tomorrow, I'd stand before the city council with Tom Morrison. We'd bring the photographs, the letters. The proof that this house was a historical landmark no developer could touch. a testament to love that refused to die. But tonight, I sat in my kitchen as the clock struck 3 a.m. Margaret's presence settled beside me, companionable as always. Two women separated by a century, united by blood and understanding and a house that knew how to wait. "We're going to win," I told her. The lights flickered. The coffee maker gurgled to life, and on the counter, still warm, a plate of cinnamon rolls appeared. The council meeting was everything Tom warned it would be. Developers with their lawyers. City officials counting campaign donations. Me with my box of evidence and my invisible ally. But I wasn't alone. Tom brought others. Families who'd grown up in the neighborhood. Who remembered Margaret Harper feeding their grandparents during the Depression. Who knew the stories whispered about the house that protected its own. One by one they stood. Testified. This house was history. This house was memory. This house was love that refused to be erased. The developers made their case. Property values, progress, the greater good. Then I played my ace. The letter I'd found that morning, appearing on my pillow like a gift. Margaret's will, legal, notarized. Leaving the house to the city as a historical monument, on the condition that it never be sold, altered, or demolished. That it stand as testimony to all the loves that history tried to bury. That it welcome any who need shelter from a world that would deny their truth. The council had no choice. The will was ironclad. The house was protected. As we celebrated on the courthouse steps, Tom asked quietly, "Where did you find that will?" "I've been through every document in that house." I smiled. "Margaret left it for me this morning. Guess she was saving it for the right moment." "She's something special," Tom said. "They both were," I corrected. "Margaret and Eleanor, and all the others who'll find safety in that house now that it's protected." That night, the house felt different. Lighter, like a weight carried for decades had finally been set down. Margaret's footsteps still traced their evening path, but now they seemed peaceful, complete. I found a final note on my pillow. "Thank you for listening, for understanding, for fighting. The house is truly yours now, but I hope you don't mind if I stay. It's been so long since I had family to bake for." I spoke to the empty room that would never be empty again. "Stay as long as you like, Margaret. This is your home, our home, always." The lights flickered once. Agreement, contentment. Home. And from the kitchen, soft as a whisper, the sound of mixing bowls and measuring spoons. Margaret Harper, baking for her great-great-granddaughter. Keeping watch, keeping faith, keeping love alive in the walls that remembered. Some tenants you can't evict. Some tenants you wouldn't want to, and sometimes, if you're very lucky, the ghost in your walls becomes the family you never knew you were missing. But I know you're wondering, what happened to those who tried to take our home? Well, let's just say the city council's decision didn't sit well with certain developers. They came one last night thinking darkness would hide their plans for sabotage. They didn't count on Margaret. They didn't count on a house that had learned to protect itself. I woke to sirens, fire trucks, police cars. The developer's van wrapped around the old oak tree, though no one could explain how it got there. The men inside babbling about walls that moved, doors that led nowhere. A woman in old-fashioned dress who walked through solid matter and whispered their secrets. They were arrested. Conspiracy to commit arson, the police said. They'd find the evidence in their van. Gas cans, rags. Plans to burn the worthless old house and collect insurance from the mysterious shell company that had tried to buy it. Margaret saved more than just our home that night. She saved lives, mine included. So, if you're listening to this, cozy in your bed, wondering if it's just a story, think about the houses in your neighborhood. The ones that stand empty but never feel abandoned. The ones with histories too rich for city records. The ones that choose their families as carefully as families choose them. And if you find yourself inheriting a house too good to be true, if you smell cinnamon where no one's baking, if you hear footsteps tracing ancient paths, listen. Learn. Respect what came before. Because some ghosts aren't hauntings, they're inheritances. They're love letters written in wood and stone. They're proof that what we are to each other matters more than what the world says we're allowed to be. And sometimes they make really excellent cinnamon rolls. Sleep well, and remember, you're never truly alone. The walls remember, the houses know. And somewhere in some room you haven't found yet, love waits patient as stone for you to come home. But before you close your eyes tonight, tell me, does your house have cold spots you can't explain? Doors that open by themselves? Scents that shouldn't be there? Maybe you have a tenant of your own. Maybe they're waiting for you to listen. Sweet dreams. Story number 3. The dashboard clock read 2:17 a.m. when I saw her, standing on the shoulder of Highway 287, just past mile marker 42. White dress, no coat. Colorado in November, and no coat. I'd driven past 100 hitchhikers in my life, never stopped, not once. But my foot hit the brake before my brain could form the word no, because she wasn't thumbing for a ride. Wasn't even facing traffic. She was staring at the trees, head tilted like she was listening to something only she could hear. And when my headlights swept across her face, she smiled. Not at me, at whatever waited in those dark pines. That smile, God, that smile is why I stopped. Because it was the exact same smile I'd seen in my rearview mirror 3 nights ago, and 2 weeks before that, and the month before that. Same woman, same dress, same spot, same impossible thing because I'd watched her vanish each time. Watched her fade like breath on glass the moment I'd passed. Tonight, I was done running from impossible things. The story begins now. My name is David Chen, and I drive nights for a medical courier service. Blood samples, organs for transplant, time-sensitive medications, the stuff that can't wait for daylight. Been doing it for 6 years. Denver to Fort Collins to Cheyenne, sometimes down to Colorado Springs. Always alone, always at night. You see things on those empty highways. Elk the size of small cars. Truckers asleep at the wheel. Once, I swear I saw a mountain lion dragging something that looked too much like a person across 6 lanes of interstate. You learn not to look too close. Learn to keep your eyes on the white lines and your mind on the podcast playing through your speakers. But you can't unsee a pattern once you've noticed it. The first time I saw her was August 15th. I remember because I'd just picked up a cooler of B negative from Presbyterian St. Joseph. Storm rolling in from the mountains. Lightning turning the sky purple. She stood exactly where she stood tonight. Mile marker 42. Northbound side of 287. White dress that belonged in a different decade. Dark hair that didn't move despite the wind bending the trees nearly horizontal. I drove past, caught her in my mirrors. Gone. Not walked away, not ducked into the trees. Gone. Like she'd never been there at all. Told myself it was the storm. Trick of the light. Exhaustion painting faces where none existed. 2 weeks later, same spot. Same woman. This time I slowed down, really looked. She had flowers in her hair. Tiny white flowers that glowed in my headlights like stars. Her lips moved like she was singing, but I couldn't hear anything over my engine. Checked the mirrors. Empty road. September twice. October 3 times. Always mile marker 42. Always that white dress. Always vanishing the moment I passed. I started keeping a log in my phone. Times, dates, weather conditions. Looking for patterns within the pattern. Moon phases. Day of the week. Temperature. Nothing made sense except the location. Mile marker 42. Where Sarah Ellington died in 1987. I found the article in the Denver Post archives. November 15th, 1987. Local girl, 19 years old, hitching home from a party. Driver who picked her up had been drinking. Wrapped his Camaro around a pine tree doing 90. He walked away with scratches. She didn't walk away at all. The article included a photo. High school yearbook, black and white. Different hair, different era. But that smile... I started taking a different route. Added 40 minutes to my runs, but I told myself it was worth it to avoid whatever this was. Worked for a week. Then I saw her on Highway 36. Same dress, same flowers, same impossible vanishing act. She was following my routes. By November, I'd accepted it. Some nights she was there, some nights she wasn't. I'd slow down, check my mirrors, watch her fade. Started to feel like a routine, like she was just another landmark on my route. The abandoned gas station at exit 47. The billboard for that casino that closed 5 years ago. The ghost at mile marker 42. But tonight, she turned around before I passed. Looked right at me through the passenger window. Mouthed a single word. Please. So I stopped. Pulled onto the shoulder 20 feet past her, hazards clicking in the darkness. Sat there for a full minute, hands gripping the wheel, telling myself to drive away. Drive away and never take this route again. Move to a different state if I had to. Instead, I looked in the mirror. She was walking toward my car. Slow, careful, like she was afraid I'd spook and drive off. The passenger door opened. I hadn't unlocked it. I know I hadn't unlocked it. Thank you, she said, sliding into the seat. Her voice was exactly what I'd expected. Soft, young, tired. I've been trying to get someone to stop for so long. She smelled like rain. Not the rain that was falling now, but summer rain. Clean and electric and impossible in November. Where? My voice cracked. I cleared my throat. Where are you going? Home, she said. Fort Collins. My parents' house on Maple Street. Do you know it? I knew it. Quiet neighborhood near the university, probably built in the 60s. Normal place. Too normal for whatever this was. Yeah, I said. I can take you there. You're kind, she said. Then, softer, you're the first kind one in a long time. I put the car in drive, pulled back onto the highway. Kept my eyes straight ahead, but I could see her in my peripheral vision. Solid. Real. Breathing. Her fingers traced patterns on the window, leaving marks in the condensation. Radiator's acting up, I said, just to say something. Makes it fog up in here. I don't mind, she said. I like the way the lights look through it, like stars underwater. We drove in silence for 5 minutes, 10. The highway stretched ahead, empty except for the occasional semi. I kept waiting for her to vanish, to fade, to reveal whatever she really was. You've seen me before, she said suddenly. I know you have. You slowed down all those times. Yeah, I admitted. I've seen you. But you never stopped. What could I say? That I was afraid, that stopping for ghosts seemed like a bad idea, that I had a delivery schedule to keep? I didn't know you needed help. She laughed, soft and sad. I didn't. Not those times. Those times I was just practicing, remembering how to be seen. Practicing. It's harder than you'd think, being visible. Being here enough that someone could see me. Most nights I can barely manage a few seconds. But tonight, she turned to face me. Tonight I needed to be here. Really be here. Because tonight's the night. What night? The night I'm supposed to warn you. My hands tightened on the wheel. Warn me about what? About the 18-wheeler that's going to cross the median at mile marker 51. About the driver who's been awake for 36 hours straight. About the family of 4 in the minivan who won't see him coming. She looked back out the window. About the choice you're going to have to make. Mile marker 47 passed in a blur. My speedometer crept up to 70, 75, 80. When? I asked. Soon, Sarah said. Maybe 10 minutes, maybe 15. Time's funny when you're like me. We should call the police. Highway patrol. Someone. She shook her head. They won't believe you. And even if they did, they can't stop what's already in motion. Only you can do that. How? By being there? By seeing the truck drift? By flashing your lights, honking your horn? By giving that family 2 extra seconds to react? She paused. Or by not being there, by turning around right now, by keeping yourself safe. That's not a choice, isn't it? She turned those dark eyes on me. You don't know these people. They're strangers. You have no obligation to risk yourself for strangers. Mile marker 48. The road curved slightly, following the base of the foothills. I knew this stretch, knew how the mountain blocked radio signals, how cell service got spotty, how you could break down here and wait an hour before another car passed. Why me? I asked. Why am I the one who has to choose? Because you're the only one who could see me. Who did see me. Night after night you noticed when everyone else drove past. She smiled, sad and knowing. You see things, David. Things other people miss. That's a gift and a burden. How do you know my name? I know a lot of things now, things I couldn't know when I was... She gestured at herself. When I was just Sarah, death is educational. Mile marker 49. My headlights caught a sign. Fort Collins, 12 miles. The family, I said. Tell me about them. Does it matter? Yes, she sighed. Parents, Jennifer and Marcus Webb, driving home from visiting her mother in Denver. 2 kids in the back. Emma, she's 7, loves horses, wants to be a veterinarian. Tyler's 4. He's asleep right now, clutching a stuffed dinosaur named Mr. Rex. My throat felt tight. Stop. You asked. Do they die? That depends on you. Mile marker 50. 1 more mile. I could see it in the distance, that slight rise in the road where the median narrowed. Perfect place for a tired driver to drift, to cross over, to end everything in a confusion of metal and glass. What happens to me, I asked, if I try to warn them? Sarah was quiet for so long I thought she wouldn't answer. Then, I don't know. I can see the moment of choice, the moment of impact, but after that, it's dark. For everyone. Even you? Especially me. She touched the window again, tracing circles in the fog. I've been waiting at mile marker 42 for 36 years, waiting for someone to stop, waiting to deliver this message. After tonight, I don't know what happens. Maybe I move on, maybe I disappear, maybe I start waiting for something else. Why didn't you just appear to the truck driver? Warn him. He wouldn't see me. Stimulants in his system. Mind too focused on staying awake. People like that can't see people like me. She smiled grimly. Ironic, isn't it? The drugs that keep him awake also blind him to the dead. Mile marker 51 appeared in my headlights. Normal stretch of highway, nothing special, no truck in sight. Pull over, Sarah said. Wait here. I eased onto the shoulder, killed the engine but left the headlights on. The silence felt heavy, pressing against my ears. Now what? Now you decide. When you see the truck start to drift, you can pull out. Get between him and the minivan. Flash your lights, hit your horn, force him to correct. She paused. Or you can sit here. Watch it happen. Drive away knowing you're safe. That's not who I am, isn't it? 6 years driving these roads. How many accidents have you passed? How many times have you been first on scene and kept driving because you had a delivery to make? She was right. God help me, she was right. I'd driven past overturned cars, past people waving for help. Always told myself someone else would stop. Someone who wasn't carrying organs or blood. Someone who could afford the delay. This is different, I said. Is it? Headlights appeared in the distance. moving fast. Too fast for the slight curve ahead. "That's him," Sarah said. 42 tons of steel and momentum. Jeremy Martinez, 28 years old. 2 kids of his own back in Aurora. Hasn't seen them in 3 weeks. Just trying to make one more run, one more paycheck, one more... Stop. I turned the key, engine roaring to life. Just stop. More headlights behind the truck. Smaller, closer to the ground. Minivan, right on schedule. "Choose," Sarah said. The truck drifted. Subtle at first. Driver's side tires kissing the rumble strip. Then correcting too hard, overcompensating. Physics taking over. I slammed the car into drive, floored it, tires screaming as I shot back onto the highway. The truck was 30 yards ahead, starting to slide sideways. The minivan coming up fast in the left lane, unaware. I hit my horn, held it down, flashed my brights. Swerved between the 2 vehicles like a maniac. The minivan braked hard, driver finally seeing the danger. The truck driver jerked awake, yanking his wheel right. For a moment, we were 3 vehicles dancing on asphalt, the truck jackknifing, the minivan sliding. Me caught between them, horn still blaring. Then the truck straightened out, rumbled past me in the right lane, the minivan fell back, driver probably cursing my reckless driving, and just like that, it was over. Crisis averted. Future changed. I pulled over a mile later, hands shaking too hard to drive. Looked at the passenger seat. Empty. But there was a note on the dashboard. Same handwriting I'd seen once before, on a yearbook photo from 1987. "Thank you for being kind. Thank you for seeing me. Thank you for stopping. SPS, check your mirror." I looked in the rearview mirror. Sarah stood on the shoulder, but she was different. The white dress was clean now, bright as fresh snow. The flowers in her hair bloomed vivid and real. And behind her stood others. Dozens of them, all ages, all eras. Some in modern clothes. Some in outfits from decades past. All watching my car with expressions of... what? Hope? Gratitude? Peace? They faded as I watched. Not vanishing like Sarah used to. Fading like morning mist, like they were finally able to let go. I sat there until my hands stopped shaking. Then I drove to Fort Collins. Delivered my cargo, clocked out. Went home to my empty apartment and tried to make sense of what had happened. The news helped. Sort of. "Near miss on Highway 287 early this morning," the anchor said. A semi-truck nearly crossed the median near mile marker 51. Alert driving by other motorists prevented what could have been a tragic accident. The truck driver has been cited for reckless driving and violation of hours of service regulations. They showed footage from a traffic camera. Grainy, black and white, but clear enough to see the truck drift, the minivan, and a courier vehicle swerving between them, hazard lights flashing. The driver of the courier vehicle left the scene before authorities arrived, the anchor continued. Highway Patrol would like to thank this Good Samaritan for their quick thinking. I turned off the TV, sat in the dark, waited for something to happen, for Sarah to appear, for the universe to acknowledge what had occurred. Nothing came. I went back to work the next night. Took Highway 287 without hesitation. Mile marker 42 came and went. Empty shoulder, no ghost, no message. But at mile marker 51, someone had left flowers. A small bouquet tied to the guardrail. White roses. Baby's breath. The kind of arrangement you'd leave at a grave. I stopped. Read the card. For the stranger who gave us 2 extra seconds. Forever grateful, the Webb family. I drove that route for another 3 months, never saw Sarah again. Never saw any of the others. Started to wonder if I'd imagined it all. Stress, exhaustion. Too many nights alone on empty highways. Then I got transferred, day shift, Denver to Boulder. Safe, sunny drives with traffic and witnesses. Normal, boring. Exactly what I'd thought I wanted. I lasted 2 weeks. Turns out, once you've seen what's hidden in the darkness, Daylight feels like a lie. Once you know, there are people standing on the shoulders, waiting to be seen, waiting to warn, waiting to save. You can't pretend they're not there. So I went back to nights, different routes now, different highways, but the same job, moving through darkness, watching for the impossible, stopping when others won't. Because Sarah was right, I see things other people miss, and now I know why. It's been a year now, November again. The leaves are turning and the nights come early. I've seen 3 more like Sarah. Different highways, different messages, different choices to make. There was the old man on I-70 warning about black ice that would claim 3 lives. The teenager on Highway 85 there to prevent head-on collision. The mother on 36 whose message saved a bus full of kids from a bridge collapse. Each time they know my name. Each time they know I'll stop. Each time they fade with that same peaceful expression, like they finally completed something important. I've started keeping a better log, not just dates and times, but details, patterns within patterns. And I've noticed something interesting. They only appear to people who are already inclined to help, people who see the world differently, people who notice the unnoticed. We're rare, but we exist, scattered across the highways, unofficial guardians of the in-between hours. I met one last month, truck driver named Miguel. We were both stopped at the same rest area, 3 a.m., comparing notes without saying what we were really comparing. He told me about a woman in a yellow raincoat who appears near Pueblo, always before flash floods, always with exact timing. You believe in that stuff? He asked, testing. I believe in patterns, I said, and in being careful. He smiled, knowing. Yeah, patterns? That's a good word for it. We exchanged numbers, started a group chat. There are 7 of us now. Night drivers who see things, who stop when we shouldn't, who listen to messages from people who shouldn't be there. We call ourselves the Night Shift. Not very creative, but accurate. Last week, the newest member asked the question we've all wondered. Why us? Why are we the ones who can see them? Miguel had the best answer. Maybe because we're already ghosts, driving through the night, invisible to the day world, passing through lives without being part of them. Maybe it takes one ghost to see another. But I think it's simpler than that. I think Sarah told me the truth that night. We see them because we're looking, because some part of us is always searching for the impossible, for the chance to matter, for the moment when stopping makes all the difference. And now, I need to tell you something. The reason I'm recording this, the reason it needs to be shared. Because I saw Sarah again tonight, same spot, mile marker 42. But this time, she wasn't alone. This time, there were hundreds of them, thousands, lining both sides of the highway as far as I could see, all in white, all waiting. I stopped, of course. How could I not? Sarah got in the car, still young, still tired. But something was different, urgent. It's happening, she said. All of us, all at once. We're being called to deliver our messages. Messages about what? About what's coming. About the choice everyone will have to make. About the moment when the world needs to decide if it's going to stop and help or keep driving past. When? Soon, days maybe, weeks at most. That's why we need people to know, need them to be watching, need them to be ready. She looked at me with those dark, knowing eyes. That's why you need to share this story, tonight, before it's too late. Share it how? No one will believe me. Some will, the ones who need to, the ones who've seen us but were too afraid to stop, the ones who feel the pull but don't understand it yet. She smiled. The ones who are already looking for patterns. Then she was gone. Not faded, not vanished. Just gone. Like she'd delivered her final message and could finally rest. But the others are still out there, I can see them from my apartment window, standing on corners, waiting at bus stops, gathered in parks, all in white, all waiting. Waiting for you to see them, waiting for you to stop, waiting to deliver their messages about what's coming. So, here's my question for you. Listening to this in the dark, have you seen them? The people who shouldn't be there? The ones who vanish when you look back? The patterns that don't make sense until they do? Have you noticed how many there are lately? How they're appearing in places they've never been before? How they all seem to be waiting for something? And most importantly, when you see one tomorrow, or the next day, or next week, when they mouth the word please, and you have to decide whether to stop or keep driving, what will you choose? Because Sarah was right about one thing. We all have gifts. We all see things others miss. And sometimes, those things we see are trying to save us. But only if we're brave enough to stop. Only if we're kind enough to listen. Only if we're ready to be the person who makes the difference. The dashboard clock reads 2:17 a.m. as I finish recording this. Same time I first stopped for Sarah. The pattern coming full circle. And through my window I can see them gathering. More every minute. All in white. All waiting. Tomorrow, they'll start appearing to everyone. Not just the night drivers. Not just the ones already looking. Everyone. The question is, when you see yours, what message will they have? And will you be ready to hear it? But before you close your eyes tonight, before you drift off thinking this is just another ghost story, ask yourself one thing. Have you checked your mirrors lately? Really checked? Because sometimes the most important messages come from the people we've learned not to see, and sometimes they're already sitting in your passenger seat. Waiting, sleep well. Story number 4. The floorboard shouldn't have been loose. I'd lived in this old Victorian house in Salem, Massachusetts for 3 years, and that floorboard under my bedroom window had always been solid. But last Tuesday, when I dropped my phone and it bounced just right, I heard it. A hollow sound, like there was empty space beneath. My name is Sarah Chen, and what I found under that floorboard changed everything I thought I knew about time, about reality, and about myself. Before I tell you what happened, I need you to understand something. I'm not the type of person who believes in the supernatural. I'm an accountant. I deal in numbers, facts, spreadsheets. My life is organized down to the minute. So when I tell you this story, just know that I've spent the last week trying to find any logical explanation, and I can't. If you're listening to this late at night, maybe turn on a light, because once you hear what I found, you might start checking your own floorboards. And now, the story begins. That Tuesday started like any other. Coffee at 7:15, emails by 7:30, out the door by 8 o'clock sharp for my commute to downtown Boston. The October air had that perfect New England crispness, leaves crunching under my feet as I walked to my car. Everything was normal. It wasn't until that evening, around 9:30, that my phone slipped from my hand while I was texting my sister Emma. It hit the floor with that distinctive crack that makes your heart sink. But when I bent down to pick it up, my hand pressed against the floorboard. It moved, just slightly, but enough to make me freeze. I pressed again, definitely loose. The wood was old, probably original to the 1890s construction. But this wasn't natural wear. Someone had cut this board. I should have left it alone, should have called my landlord, Mr. Petrov. Let him deal with it. But curiosity is a powerful thing. I grabbed a butter knife from the kitchen and carefully worked the edge of the board. It came up easier than expected, like it had been opened recently. Underneath was a small space, maybe 6 inches deep. And sitting there, wrapped in plastic, was a leather journal. My hands trembled as I lifted it out. The leather was soft, expensive. The kind you'd find at one of those boutique stationery stores in Cambridge. But what made my blood run cold was the handwriting on the first page. It was mine. Not similar to mine, not close to mine, it was mine. Down to the way I dot my I's with a little circle when I'm writing quickly, but I'd never seen this journal before in my life. The first entry was dated November 15th, 2025. Next month. My heart hammered as I read, I'm writing this in the past, if that makes any sense. It doesn't to me either. But Dr. Weiss says I need to document everything. She says the timeline fragmentation is getting worse. I can feel myself slipping between moments, between versions of myself. If you're reading this, Sarah, if you're me from October 2025, then it's already starting. You've probably noticed the dreams by now, the ones where you're in this house but it's different, where the walls are the wrong color, where there's a door that shouldn't exist. Those aren't dreams. I know how this sounds. I know because I remember finding this journal, remember thinking I was losing my mind. But I need you to trust me, trust us, because in 3 days, you're going to see the first crack. And once you see it, there's no going back. I dropped the journal like it was burning. This had to be some kind of prank. Emma was always pulling elaborate jokes, though this seemed extreme even for her. But how would she copy my handwriting so perfectly? I picked it up again, flipped through the pages. They were all filled. Hundreds of entries, all in my handwriting, all dated from the future. Some from next month, some from next year. And some were dated from 2030, 2035, even 2040. My hands shook as I read random entries. December 3rd, 2026, the house is teaching me. Every room holds a different lesson about time. The basement shows the past, but not our past. A past where different choices were made, where Mom never died, where I became a teacher instead of an accountant. Sometimes I stay down there for hours, watching the life I could have had. June 17th, 2029. I met another version of myself today. She was older, maybe by 10 years. She warned me about the attic, said never to go up there after midnight, said that's when the house feeds. I asked her what she meant, but she just smiled sadly and faded away. October 2nd, 2031. I understand now why I had to hide this journal in the past. It's the only way to close the loop, the only way to make sure I find it at the right time. Dr. Weiss says temporal paradoxes are necessary for stability, but I think she's wrong. I think the house wants us to believe that. I think the house has been feeding on paradoxes all along. I slammed the journal shut. This was insane, completely impossible. Time travel wasn't real. Future versions of yourself couldn't write journals and hide them in the past, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched, that the house itself was waiting, watching to see what I would do next. I went to the kitchen and poured myself a glass of wine, then another. By the third glass, I'd almost convinced myself it was all an elaborate hoax. Almost. That's when I noticed the kitchen door. It was the wrong color. I'd painted it white when I moved in. I remembered because it had taken 3 coats to cover the ugly brown. But now it was pale blue. The exact shade of blue my mom had painted our kitchen door when I was a kid. The wine glass slipped from my hand, shattered on the tile floor. I didn't move to clean it up. I couldn't look away from that door, because I remembered the journal entry, the one about dreams where the house was different. Those aren't dreams. I didn't sleep that night. How could I? Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that blue door. Every time I started to drift off, I heard noises. Not the normal settling of an old house, but footsteps. Soft ones, like someone trying not to be heard. By morning, I'd convinced myself I was having some kind of breakdown. Stress from work, maybe. I'd been putting in 60-hour weeks trying to make senior accountant. That had to be it. The journal was a prank. The door, maybe I was misremembering. Maybe it had always been blue. I called in sick to work, first time in 2 years. My boss, Janet, sounded concerned. "This isn't like you, Sarah. Are you sure you're okay?" No, I wasn't okay, but I couldn't exactly tell her I'd found a journal from my future self, could I? I spent the morning going through the house room by room, looking for more changes, finding them. The bathroom mirror was wrong. It had been a simple rectangle. Now it was oval. The living room carpet had a pattern I didn't remember. Small things. Things that could be explained away if you tried hard enough. But then I found the photographs. They were in my desk drawer, where I keep important documents. Photos I'd never seen before. Photos of me, but not me. Me with longer hair, me wearing clothes I didn't own, me standing in front of this house. But the house looked different. Older, or maybe newer. It was hard to tell. In one photo, I was standing with a woman I didn't recognize. We were both smiling, arms around each other like old friends. On the back, in my handwriting, Sarah and Dr. Weiss, September 2027 song. Dr. Weiss, the doctor mentioned in the journal. I grabbed the journal again, found every mention of her. She appeared first in entries from 2026, always referred to as Dr. Weiss, or sometimes just Caroline. According to the entries, she was some kind of specialist, a physicist who studied temporal anomalies. According to future me, she was the only person who believed what was happening. I was startled from my reading by a knock at the door. Not the front door, the kitchen door, the blue one. Nobody knocked on the kitchen door. It led to the back garden, and the gate was always locked. 3 knocks, slow, deliberate. I crept to the kitchen, peered through the window, nobody there. But the knocking came again, this time from inside the door, like someone was trapped between the wood, knocking to get out. That's when I noticed the crack. It started at the top of the door frame, a thin line of absolute darkness, not shadow, darkness, like reality itself had split. As I watched, it grew, inch by inch, creeping down the wall. The journal had mentioned cracks, said I'd see the first one in 3 days, but this was only day 1. Unless... I checked my phone. Wednesday. But that couldn't be right. I'd found the journal on Tuesday night. It was Wednesday morning. But my phone said Thursday. I'd lost a day. A full day just... gone. The crack reached the floor and stopped. The knocking stopped too. Everything was quiet. Too quiet. The kind of quiet that presses against your eardrums. Makes you aware of your own heartbeat. I backed away from the door, grabbed my car keys. I needed to get out. Needed to think. But when I reached the front door, it wouldn't open, not locked, just wouldn't open. Like the house itself was keeping me inside. That's when I heard the voice. My voice. Coming from upstairs. "Sarah, you can't leave. Not yet. We need to talk." My legs felt like water. Every instinct screamed at me to run, but where? The doors wouldn't open. And the voice, it sounded tired, sad, older. I climbed the stairs slowly, each step creaked. A countdown to something I couldn't understand. The voice was coming from my bedroom. The door was cracked open, just enough to see movement inside. I pushed it open. She was sitting on my bed, me, but not me. Older by maybe 5 years. Hair shorter, streaks of premature gray, wearing clothes I didn't recognize. She looked up as I entered, and her eyes were so tired. "Hi, Sarah," she said. "I'm sorry it has to happen this way, but you need to understand what's coming." I couldn't speak, could barely breathe. We looked exactly like me. Every detail. Even the small scar on my left hand from when I'd cut myself cooking last year. "This isn't real," I whispered. "No," she agreed, "it's not. Not in the way you understand reality, but it's happening. The house, it exists between moments, between possibilities. And once you find the journal, once you see the cracks, you become part of it." "Part of what?" She stood up, walked to the window, looked out at the street below. "Time isn't a line, Sarah. It's more like a tree. branches spreading in all directions. Every choice, every moment, creates a new branch. The house exists in the spaces between branches, and we're the fruit it feeds on. That's insane. Yes, she said simply, it is. But insane doesn't mean untrue. You'll learn that soon enough. She turned back to me, reached into her pocket and pulled out a business card. Dr. Caroline Weiss, temporal physicist. She's the only one who can help, but what? But helping comes with a price. Everything does in this house. You'll have to decide if the price is worth paying. She walked past me, paused at the door. The journal will tell you everything. But remember, not all of it is true. Some entries are from versions of us that never should have existed. Some are from futures that won't happen. Learning to tell the difference, that's the key to surviving. Wait, I called after her. How do I know which entries are real? She smiled sadly. You'll know, because they're the ones that hurt the most. And then she was gone. Not walked away, gone. Like she'd never been there at all. I sank onto my bed, the same spot where she'd been sitting. It was still warm. The next few days blurred together. Time became elastic, stretching and compressing in ways that made my head spin. I'd look at the clock and hours would have passed, or I'd spend what felt like hours reading the journal, only to find minutes had gone by. I called Dr. Weiss. The number on the card worked, but she seemed unsurprised to hear from me. Sarah Chen, she said before I could introduce myself. I've been expecting your call. How many cracks have you seen? 3, I told her. 1 in the kitchen, 1 in the bathroom, and 1, I hesitated, 1 in the basement ceiling. The basement, have you gone down there yet? No. Good, not until I get there. The basement is complicated. How far into the journal have you read? I'd been reading obsessively, each entry more disturbing than the last. Up to 2033. A pause. Which version of 2033? What? There are multiple entries for some dates, written by different versions of you. Which 2033 are you reading? I checked. The one about the garden party. Ah. Her voice was careful. That's from a branch that withered. Don't trust anything from that entry, that version of you. She made choices that led nowhere good. I'll be there tomorrow. Don't go in the basement. Don't follow any instructions from the journal until I arrive. And whatever you do, don't look directly at the cracks for too long. Why? Because sometimes something looks back. She hung up. I wanted to call back, had 1,000 questions, but I was exhausted, the kind of tired that sits in your bones. I hadn't slept properly in days. I made coffee, tried to work on some client files I'd brought home, pretended everything was normal. But how could I focus on tax returns when reality itself was fracturing around me? That night, I heard them. The other versions of me, moving through the house, their footsteps on the stairs, their voices in the walls. Whispers of conversations I'd never had, laughs at jokes I'd never heard, crying over losses I'd never experienced. One of them knocked on my bedroom door around 3 a.m. Sarah, are you awake? My voice, but younger, lighter, happier. I didn't answer. I know you're scared, the voice continued. I was too, but it gets better. The house, it shows you things, beautiful things, worlds where everything went right, where Mom never got sick, where we married David instead of letting him go, where we're happy. David, my college boyfriend. I hadn't thought about him in years. We'd broken up when I took the job in Boston, when I chose career over love. You can visit those worlds, the voice said. Live in them for a while. The house lets you. All you have to do is stop. Another voice, older, harsher. Don't listen to her. She's not real. None of the happy ones are real. They're bait. The house shows you what you want, makes you comfortable, makes you stay. But the happy branches, they're all dead ends, traps. You're just bitter because you chose wrong, the younger voice snapped. I chose to survive, the older one replied, which is more than you can say. They argued for a while. My voices, my possible selves. Eventually, they moved away, their argument fading into the walls. But I couldn't sleep, couldn't stop thinking about what they'd said. The next morning, I found a new entry in the journal. Fresh ink, written in my hand, but I hadn't written it. October 5th, 2025. She called Weiss. Good, that's how it's supposed to happen. But I'm worried, the cracks are spreading faster this time. The house is hungrier, maybe because there are more of us now. Maybe because the branches are getting tangled. I want to warn her about Weiss, want to tell her the truth. But I can't, because I didn't, because no one warned me. The loop has to close. The paradox has to complete. I'm sorry, Sarah. I'm so sorry for what's coming. I stared at the entry, watched the ink dry, wondered which version of me had written it, wondered what truth about Dr. Weiss I wasn't being told. The doorbell rang. Dr. Weiss was early. She wasn't what I'd expected. Younger, maybe early 40s. Bright red hair pulled back in a messy bun, wearing jeans and an MIT sweatshirt. She had a messenger bag slung over one shoulder and a coffee cup in each hand. Figured you'd need caffeine, she said, handing me one. May I come in? I stepped aside. She entered without hesitation, but I noticed how her eyes immediately went to the cracks, how she carefully stepped around certain spots on the floor. How long have you been studying this? I asked. The house? 3 years. The phenomenon itself, most of my career. She set her bag on my kitchen table, pulled out equipment I didn't recognize. I've documented 17 cases like yours, houses that exist between realities, people who get caught in temporal loops. You're the first one who's called me this early in the process. The others, what happened to them? She paused, looked at me directly. Most of them are still in their houses, living every possible version of their lives simultaneously, unable to leave, unable to die, unable to stop. My coffee tasted like ash. And the rest? One got out, just one, but she left pieces of herself behind, scattered across timelines. She's functional, mostly, but she dreams about the house every night, dreams about all the selves she abandoned. How did she escape? Dr. Weiss pulled out a device that looked like a modified tablet, started taking readings near the kitchen crack. She made a choice, a hard one. She chose one timeline, one version of herself, and let the others go, collapsed the probability wave, forced herself into a single reality. That doesn't sound so hard, she laughed, bitter. Doesn't it? Tell me, Sarah, if you could live in a world where your mother never died, would you give that up? If you could be with the person you loved, would you choose loneliness instead? If you could see every possible version of your life, would you settle for just one? I thought about David, about Mom, about all the paths not taken. The house doesn't trap you, Dr. Weiss continued. You trap yourself. Because once you see all the possibilities, how do you choose just one? How do you accept that this one single life is all you get? But you said someone escaped. She did, but she had help. Someone who understood the science, someone who could collapse the wave function from outside. She looked at me meaningfully. Someone like me. So, you'll help me, if you want me to, but understand, once we start, there's no going back. You'll have to choose one timeline, one life, and all the others. All the other yous, they'll cease to exist. You'll be killing them. They're not real. Aren't they? She showed me her tablet. The screen displayed something that looked like a tree made of light. thousands of branches, each one pulsing. Every branch is a version of you. Each one thinks she's real. Each one has memories, hopes, dreams. From their perspective, you're the one who isn't real. I stared at the display, watched the branches pulse and grow. There's something else, Dr. Weiss said. The house. It's not just a passive observer. It feeds on the energy created by parallel selves existing in the same space. The more versions of you that manifest, the stronger it gets. And when it gets strong enough... What? It reproduces, creates more houses, spreads to more people. Your house is old, but it's not the first, and it won't be the last. Dr. Weiss set up her equipment throughout the house. Sensors at each crack. Monitors tracking temporal fluctuations. She worked with the efficiency of someone who'd done this before, but I caught her checking her watch, frowning at readings. "What's wrong?" I asked. "The acceleration is unusual. Typically, the process takes weeks, sometimes months. But your house..." She showed me a graph I didn't understand. "You're experiencing temporal fragmentation at 3 times the normal rate. Is that bad?" "I don't know. I've never seen it before. It could mean the house is stronger here. Or..." She hesitated. "Or it could mean you're more susceptible. Some people are. People who've experienced loss, who have regrets. The house finds those weak points and exploits them." I thought about all my regrets. Mom, David, the job in Chicago I'd turned down, the book I'd never written. So many paths not taken. That night, Dr. Weiss stayed. We ordered Chinese food, ate it while she explained the science. Most of it went over my head, but the basics were simple enough. Reality was probability. Observation collapsed probability into actuality. The house existed in a space where observation was flexible. "Think of Schrodinger's cat," she said. "In the box, it's both alive and dead until you observe it. The house is like that box. Inside it, you're living all possible lives until you choose one, until you observe yourself in a single state." But I am observing myself, right now. Are you? Or are you observing multiple versions simultaneously? The human mind isn't equipped to process parallel realities, so it creates a narrative, tries to make sense of the impossible, but the cracks, there where the narrative breaks down, where you can see the truth. After she left to get equipment from her car, I went to my bedroom. The journal was there, but it had changed. New entries, hundreds of them, all dated from the past few hours. October 5th, 2025, 8:17 p.m. She's lying. Weiss isn't here to help. She's here to feed the house. Every person she saves makes it stronger, makes it spread. I figured it out too late. We all do. October 5th, 2025, 8:43 p.m. Don't trust the previous entry. That was written by a version who went insane. Weiss saved me. Saved us. The process hurts, but it works. You just have to trust her. October 5th, 2025, 9:22 p.m. The house is writing entries now, pretending to be us. Can't tell which ones are real anymore. Maybe none of them, maybe all of them. Does it matter? We're all stories in the end, and stories want to be told. I threw the journal across the room, pressed my palms against my eyes. How was I supposed to know what was true? How was I supposed to choose? A knock at my bedroom door. "Sarah?" Dr. Weiss's voice. "Are you okay?" I opened the door. She was holding a device that looked like a modified EEG machine. "I need to monitor your brainwaves tonight. Map which timeline you're primarily connected to. Is that okay?" I nodded. Let her attach the electrodes. Tried not to think about the journal entries, about the possibility that she was lying, that this was all part of the house's plan. "I know it's hard to trust me," she said, like she'd read my mind. "The house creates doubt, makes you question everything. But I've done this before. I can help you." The person who escaped, who was she? Dr. Weiss paused. My sister, Rebecca. She found a house like this in Portland. I spent 2 years figuring out how to get her out. 2 years watching her fragment. Multiply, fade, but I did it. I saved her. Is she okay? She's alive. She's single. She's real. That's more than most get. She finished attaching the electrodes. Try to sleep. I'll monitor from downstairs. Tomorrow, we'll start the process. But I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the branches. Saw myself living 1,000 different lives. Felt the weight of all those possibilities. How could I choose just one? How could I condemn all the others to non-existence? Around 3 a.m., I heard voices downstairs. Dr. Weiss talking to someone. I crept to the top of the stairs. Listened. Progressing faster than expected, she was saying. The fragmentation is severe. At this rate, we have maybe 12 hours before full dissolution. Then we move now. A man's voice. Familiar, but I couldn't place it. Begin the collapse sequence. Target the prime timeline. It's too soon. She hasn't made the choice. If we force it, we don't have time for consent. You know what happens if we let it spread. How many houses are you willing to risk? How many people? This isn't what we agreed to. No, but it's necessary. Start the sequence, Caroline. Or I will. Silence. Then footsteps, coming up the stairs. I ran back to my room, dove into bed, pretended to be asleep. The door opened, Dr. Weiss entered, but she wasn't alone. The man with her, I recognized him now, from photos in the journal, from a future that hadn't happened yet. It was David, older, wearing a suit that probably cost more than my car, looking at me with eyes that held 15 years of different choices. Hello, Sarah, he said softly. I'm sorry it has to be this way, but the house, it's spreading, using you as a conduit. We have to stop it, even if it means killing her, Dr. Weiss finished. All of her, every version. It's the only way to sever the connection completely. I sat up, no point pretending anymore. You're not here to save me. We're here to save everyone else, David said. The houses are spreading exponentially. Portland, Salem, Boston, now Chicago. Each one creates more fractured people, more food for them, more growth. It has to stop. So, you're going to kill me. We're going to collapse your probability wave, Dr. Weiss corrected. Force you into a single state. It's survivable. Usually. But sometimes the person can't handle the loss. Can't accept a single reality, and David couldn't finish. They dissolve, Dr. Weiss said. Scatter across timelines. Become part of the house permanently. I laughed, bitter, angry, so my choices are die or become a ghost in the walls. Great options. There is another way, a new voice, from the corner of my room. I turned, saw myself, another version, this one wearing a doctor's coat, looking exhausted but determined. I've been studying the phenomenon from inside, found a pattern, a way to use the house's hunger against it. Don't listen to her, Dr. Weiss warned. She's a manifestation, not real. As real as you are, the other me snapped. More real, maybe, because I'm not lying to her. Not pretending there's only one solution. She turned to me. The house feeds on probability, on potential. But what if we gave it something else? What if instead of choosing one timeline, we chose none? That's suicide, David said. No, it's transcendence. Step outside the branches entirely. Exist in the space between, like the house does, but on our terms. You'd become like it, Dr. Weiss said. A parasite, feeding on other people's possibilities. Or a guardian, protecting them from houses like this, warning them, helping them. The other me smiled sadly. It's not a perfect solution, but it's better than death, better than dissolution, better than letting the houses spread unchecked. I looked between them. Dr. Weiss and David, with their equipment and their certainty. My other self, with her exhaustion and her hope. All of them waiting for me to choose. Outside, dawn was breaking. The sun painting the walls gold, showing every crack, every place where reality was wearing thin. In a few hours, the house would be strong enough to manifest fully, to spread, to consume. I had to choose, one life or none, reality or transcendence, safety or purpose. I thought about the journal, about all those entries from future selves, all those warnings and pleas and desperate attempts to change what was coming, all those versions of me trying to save me. I stood up, pulled off the electrodes, walked to the window where the first crack had appeared. It was wider now, wide enough to reach into, wide enough to step through. "Sarah," Dr. Weiss warned, "don't." But I was already reaching, already choosing, not one timeline, not none, but something else. Something the house hadn't expected, something none of them had considered. I grabbed the edges of the crack and pulled, not to widen it, to close it, to heal it, to choose not a single reality but the acceptance of all realities, the acknowledgement that every path was valid, every choice was real, every version of me deserved to exist. The house shuddered, the walls groaned, and I felt it, the hunger, the endless appetite for probability, for potential, for the energy created by fractured souls. But I felt something else too, understanding. The house wasn't evil, wasn't malicious, it was just hungry, fed by our inability to accept ourselves, our regrets, our desperate need to be someone else, somewhere else, someone else. I pushed harder, forced the crack closed, felt the house resist, then relent, felt it offer something, a bargain, a possibility. "What are you doing?" David demanded. "Choosing," I said, "all of it, every path, every possibility, every version. I'm not picking one, I'm not rejecting them all. I'm accepting them, living with them, learning from them." "That's impossible," Dr. Weiss said. "The human mind can't." "Then I'll become more than human." The crack sealed. The house sighed, and I felt the change. Not dissolution, not collapse, but expansion. Every version of me, still existing, still living their lives, but connected, aware, part of something larger. I turned to face them, saw their fear, their confusion, their awe. "The houses will keep spreading," I said. My voice was different now, layered, multiple. "But now they'll have to deal with me. All of me. Every version. Every possibility. A network of selves, protecting others from the same fate." "You've become one of them," David whispered. "No, I've become something new. Something that can fight them. Help people navigate the cracks. Show them they don't have to choose just one life. They can accept all of themselves. Learn to live with their possibilities instead of being consumed by them." Dr. Weiss was scanning me with her equipment, shaking her head at the readings. "This is impossible. You should be scattered, dissolved, but you're cohesive, stable, more stable than before. Because I'm not fighting anymore, not running from my choices, not hiding from my regrets." I smiled, felt all my selves smile with me. The house feeds on conflict, on the war between what is and what could be, but when you accept both, there's nothing left to feed on. I walked past them, down the stairs. The house felt different now, not a trap but a tool, a way to help others who would find themselves here, who would discover their own journals, their own cracks, their own impossible choices. "Where are you going?" David called after me. "To find the other houses, the other people like me, to offer them the choice you never gave me, the choice to be whole, all of them, every version, every possibility." I paused at the door, looked back at them one last time. The journal was right about one thing. Once you see the cracks, there's no going back. But maybe that's not a curse, maybe it's a gift. The gift of seeing yourself, all of yourself, and learning to love every version. I stepped outside, felt the sun on my face, felt 1,000 suns on 1,000 faces, all me, all real, all walking different paths, but connected now, always connected. Behind me, I heard Dr. Weiss say something to David, heard him respond. But I was already moving, already searching, already finding the next house, the next person, the next chance to turn a curse into a gift. My phone buzzed. A text from Emma. "Hey, want to grab coffee? I have the weirdest story to tell you. I think my apartment might be haunted." I smiled. Typed back, "On my way. And Emma, whatever you do, don't look directly at the cracks." Then I walked toward her apartment. All of me, every version, ready to help, ready to teach, ready to show her that sometimes the most terrifying thing isn't choosing wrong. It's never realizing you don't have to choose at all. But here's the thing about my story, the thing that might keep you up tonight. You see, as I walked to Emma's apartment, as all of me walked, I noticed something. The cracks weren't just in my house. They were everywhere. Thin lines in reality that most people couldn't see, in shop windows, in sidewalks, in the spaces between heartbeats. And I realized my house wasn't special, wasn't unique. It was just the first one I'd noticed. The cracks have always been there. In every building, every home, every life, waiting for someone to see them, to acknowledge them, to fall through. So I have to ask you something, and I need you to think carefully before you answer. Maybe write it in the comments. Maybe share this with someone who might understand. Have you noticed anything strange in your house lately? Doors the wrong color? Photos you don't remember taking? Floorboards that sound hollow when they shouldn't? Have you been having dreams where your life is different? Where you made other choices? Where the people you lost are still with you? Have you felt watched? Not by someone, but by somewhere? By the walls themselves? Because if you have, if any of this sounds familiar, then maybe you should check your floorboards. Maybe you already have a journal waiting. Maybe your cracks are already starting to show. And if you find something, if you discover your own impossible journal, remember what I learned. You don't have to choose just one path. You don't have to let the house feed on your regrets. You can become more. All of you. Every version. Every possibility. The houses are spreading, but so are we. The people who've learned to navigate the cracks, who've accepted all ourselves, who've turned our fractures into strength. We're waiting for you, all of us, every version. Just remember, don't look directly at the cracks for too long, unless you're ready to see what looks back. Sweet dreams.